In the wake of a harrowing night in Port Charles, emotions reached a boiling point at General Hospital in the May 6, 2025 episode, as the Falconeri family found themselves spiraling into a vortex of blame, guilt, and long-buried secrets. What began as a tragic scare involving teenage recklessness turned into a storm of revelation that could alter family ties forever. With Rocco fighting for his life after a shocking bout of alcohol poisoning, Dante's simmering rage ignited, casting suspicion, mistrust, and emotional devastation across every corner of the hospital. It all unfolded with the desperate arrival of Lulu and Dante at General Hospital, where they clung to hope and fear in equal measure. Their son, Rocco, had been rushed in after collapsing at a party, his condition quickly diagnosed as acute alcohol poisoning. For Dante, a seasoned detective haunted by past losses and the heavy weight of fatherhood, this crisis triggered a visceral fury. Memories of past cases where parents had to bury their children came flooding back. But it wasn't just his professional trauma gnawing at him, his personal grief over losing Sam still loomed large, making Rocco's near-death experience all the more intolerable. As the doctors fought to stabilize Rocco, Dante's anger found an immediate target: Gio, the enigmatic and increasingly visible teen who had been with Rocco at the time of the incident. Though there was no concrete evidence that Gio had supplied alcohol or coerced Rocco into drinking, Dante's protective instincts and raw emotional state left no room for nuance. His accusations exploded in the waiting room, catching the attention of everyone nearby, including Gio's mother, Lois Cerullo, who watched the confrontation with growing dread. The situation became even more volatile when Lulu joined Dante at their son's bedside. Rocco, weak but conscious, expressed deep regret, whispering apologies to his tearful parents. Though this moment should have brought Dante solace, it only seemed to deepen his rage. Rocco's safety may have been restored, but the betrayal Dante felt, real or imagined, had already rooted itself deeply. In an emotionally charged moment, Dante demanded a private conversation with Gio and Lois. Pulling them into a quiet corridor of the hospital, he unleashed the full extent of his anger, recounting the horror of watching his son nearly die. But before Dante could fully finish, Lois stepped in with a powerful, cryptic statement: "You don't know who he really is." Her words cut through the chaos, silencing even Dante. It was a line loaded with weight and implication, one that hinted at a devastating truth only she knew. Because Lois, and Lois alone, held a secret that had remained buried for years: Gio is Dante's biological son. The revelation, still unspoken yet brimming just beneath the surface, was enough to shatter her resolve. The pain of watching her son be wrongfully accused by his own father, completely unaware of their connection, was too much to bear. But could she finally summon the courage to tell Dante the truth? The stakes had never been higher, and the cost of silence was starting to spiral out of control. Meanwhile, another firestorm was quietly erupting elsewhere in Port Charles. At the boathouse, Carly paid a visit to Danny, the troubled teen who had been with Rocco during the party. Danny, still processing the aftermath, was overwhelmed by guilt. Carly, ever the maternal force, didn't sugarcoat her words. She told him flatly that responsibility wasn't something that could be passed off. Whether he had poured the drinks or merely stood by while his friend consumed them, he had failed to protect Rocco, and now, he had to live with that. But Carly's words weren't meant to condemn, they were meant to awaken. Danny needed to understand the gravity of his choices, not because he was a bad kid, but because every choice carried weight. And if the youth of Port Charles were ever going to grow into responsible adults, they needed to see what could happen when a night of fun turned into a near tragedy. As news of Rocco's recovery spread, a cautious sigh of relief passed through the community. But even as the immediate danger faded, the long-term consequences were only beginning to take shape. Dante's fury had not abated, and his suspicion of Gio seemed only to grow. Lois, visibly shaken, struggled with the decision she'd been postponing for far too long. The longer she stayed silent, the more damage she allowed to be done, to Dante, to Gio, and to herself. At the same time, Lulu's awareness began to deepen. She had witnessed Lois's interruption of Dante's tirade and had sensed something far deeper beneath the surface than just a protective mother stepping in. There was a familiarity in Lois's gaze toward Gio, an intensity that hinted at more than maternal concern. Lulu, sharp and intuitive, began connecting dots she had long overlooked. In the days to come, the pressure on Lois will grow unbearable. The truth of Gio's paternity could rip apart lives, but it could also heal deep wounds if handled with honesty and courage. And as Dante continues to hold Gio accountable for Rocco's brush with death, the irony of a father berating his own son, unaware of the blood tie between them, hangs like a blade ready to fall. The episode closed not with a moment of resolution, but with a chilling silence. Lois retreating from the confrontation, Dante storming off in search of answers, and Gio standing alone, confused and wounded. As the camera lingered on Lois, her eyes filled with unshed tears, the weight of unspoken truth was undeniable. One question now reverberates through Port Charles like a drumbeat in the dark. Will Lois finally reveal that Gio is Dante's son before it's too late? Because sometimes, the truth isn't just a revelation, it's salvation. Would you like a follow-up article exploring what happens if Lois does reveal the truth?